as you age, women primarily, once you hit 35, you start to lose muscle mass. Muscle is going to preserve not only your bones, your joints, your tendons, your ligaments. And if you're not strength training, you're essentially just losing all that muscle the older you get. And that's a lot of times where not only imbalances take place, but injuries as well. At the end of the day, if you're properly training to alleviate your imbalances and correct them, you won't need to go to the chiropractor or physical therapy and all that. When you're strength training under load, right, whether it be a band, you're challenging your muscles, right, eccentrically and concentrically, then your muscles get these little, they're called micro tears, and then your body has to work to repair it, and that's what builds the muscle. So that's only done through strength training.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
All right, welcome back everyone to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, the podcast, episode number 338. My name is Andrew Johnston, and thank you for making us a part of your day, your trip, your ride home from work. Truly, thank you for being here. The show today piggybacks off of last week's episode on strengthening your mind through mindfulness and meditation, and we'll be talking about how to take care of your body through strength training. So I'm very grateful for Stephanie Botts for lining up and taking the lead on this interview with Brianne. And I hope that you all enjoy this kind of shakeup, this change of pace. Next week will be the first Wednesday of the month, and you all know what that means. It's a roundtable discussion time. I actually haven't scheduled or recorded that episode yet, so I guess it'll kind of be a surprise for all of us when it actually ends up being what it's going to be. I'm throwing around some ideas about maybe interviewing people who have done side hustles. I saw someone who was doing like a shaved ice or snow cones on the side. I also saw a post of someone who works in like a medical spa type setting. I think they're also still doing hygiene, but they're also doing phlebotomy. So it's kind of that, bigger picture, whole body health. I'm also on this leadership kick right now. I just ordered like 5 books off of Amazon that I've been wanting to read for a really long time. I don't love reading. I do love reading when I'm reading, but I don't love the thought of sitting down and reading. And that feels like I never have enough time just to sit down and do it. But I'm going to make myself do it. So maybe some sort of a roundtable on leadership again. I don't know. There's lots of ideas I'm kicking around. We'll just kind of see what shakes out, and we'll let you know when we do. Last week I asked you all about the RDH rant episodes that come out. I mean, it's only once a month, and I think that I'm making this big old mountain out of a molehill, but really, I just want to make sure you are all okay with the type of stuff that we're putting out. And so I asked, hey, can we keep doing this? And crickets. I didn't hear anything. So my assumption is everyone's good with it. The downloads say that everyone's loving it. I mean, hundreds more than our other episodes. So we're going to keep doing that. We're going to put them on the feed at least monthly, as long as they want to do it. They also just told me today what the next episode is going to be about. It already has me laughing, and so I'm sure you're going to love it too. Make sure you guys are subscribing to this podcast so you don't miss any of those episodes. RDH Under One Roof is just a few weeks away. There is one event that I would really like you to put on your calendars. I mean, there's lots of good things going on, so it's not just the only event, but one thing I don't want you to miss is that Thursday evening welcome reception. It's sponsored by the Celerant Consulting Group, which is something that I'm a part of, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. It'll be on the exhibit hall floor, so come on over to the booth. You'll see all the hygiene best of class winners. So side note to this one, last week also, if you go back into your inbox, RDH eVillage, which is a newsletter that's put out by RDH Magazine, they actually announced all the award winners as well. So if you're not going to be at RDH Under One Roof, don't feel like you're going to miss this. Just go digging through your inbox, take a peek. You'll see what of the thousands of hygiene products and technologies that are out there, the things that we've kind of distilled it down into being some of our favorites, our best of class winners. That is all from me for this week. Thank you again so much for downloading and listening to this episode. I hope you enjoy it.
A tale of two hygienists.
Okay, so here we are in the interview portion of the podcast, and I am so excited. I'm always excited with any guests that we have, but I'm especially excited today because we're going to be talking about how to improve your body's health in order to feel better, to have a career longevity, to have a nice, long, healthy career. And a lot of that is traced back to how we take care of our bodies. So today's guest is Brianne, and I would love it if, Brianne, you could just give us a little intro as far as who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, I'm super excited too, Stephanie. So thank you for having me. So my name is Brianne. I have been growing up outside of the Chicagoland area for, 39 years now. But long story short, I've been into health and fitness essentially my whole life. I grew up with a twin brother, so I was just like an uber athlete. But as I became an adult, I started being involved in the gym at 17, in and out, and I've been personal training now for over 10 years. Strength training is my jam. It is super important for anybody, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on. So super passionate about that, and we'll touch a little bit on why that is so important at all ages. But yeah, other than that, I have a 16-year-old daughter named Gianna, and I have a pit bull boy, and yeah, that's about it.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really excited. I was excited when we first connected on LinkedIn, I think is when we first met, because as you know, I'm into ergonomics and helping dental providers really just take care of themselves. And there's a lot of misconceptions, at least in dentistry, that I have seen as far as what's the best exercise for us, what should we do, what should we not do. A lot of the people that I talk to are really focused on stretching, and they think that stretching is all we need in dentistry. But since I've gotten to know you, I've learned that that's not the case. So why is strengthening so important for us? And why do we want to do that in addition to stretching?
So as you guys have probably noticed, once you stretch, say your chest, for example, you feel a little bit more relaxed, right? Less tense for, maybe a couple hours a day. And then it reverts right back, right? So essentially, I always like to educate people on essentially your muscles are like rubber bands. So while you stretch them out, you will feel a little bit of tension released, but then it goes right back to the way it is, just like a rubber band. So moral of the story is when you are doing strength training, you're lengthening those short muscles. So when your muscle is very tight and overused, for example, the chest, because you all dental pros are leaning forward, that's going to lengthen the muscle. So it's a portion of the of the puzzle, if you will. So you have to stretch those overactive muscles, and then we have to strengthen the underactive. But just to touch on ergonomics, also additional piece of the puzzle, right? You can't just kind of correct your posture when you've been having poor posture for so many years because your muscles are already having an imbalance, whether it's the front and the back, vice versa. So long story short is, I was so glad when I connected with Stephanie because I'm like, this is genius. And I've met other people in ergonomics and I'm like, you guys, this is so great what you're doing. However, like I said, you can't just fix your posture, right? There's a plan B that you have to kind of incorporate. So ergonomics and strength training definitely go hand in hand. And I think you're all aware of that. But if you're not, it's essentially 50% ergonomics, 50% strength training. And not to continue rambling on, but as you age, women primarily, once you hit 35, you start to lose muscle mass. Muscle is going to preserve not only your bones, your joints, your tendons, your ligaments. And if you're not strength training, you're essentially just losing all that muscle the older you get. And that's a lot of times where not only imbalances take place, but injuries as well.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that as far as the importance of strength training, especially as we get older. I know I'm feeling that these days. But also another misconception, especially amongst women, is strength training means building muscle mass and getting bigger. But the more I've worked out and the more I've talked to you, that's not really the case, right?
So I think the term that we most hear is bulky, right? Mm-hmm. You are 100% not going to get bulky. Women, we don't have enough testosterone in our body essentially to get bulky, right? So that is a total myth. But another common misconception is, people think you have to go do CrossFit or like throw 200 pounds on a barbell or, that's not the case, right? Essentially, strength training, also known as resistance training, those terms are pretty interchangeable. It's not going to get you bulky. Essentially, it's going to build that lean muscle so you get kind of that toned look is what I like to tell people. But on the flip side, I just wanted to touch on What's also not strength training is like your group exercise classes. Just because you have like a dumbbell or a kettlebell doesn't necessarily mean you're strength training. I've seen many, many programs throughout, my decade in this field that, they say they're strength training, but it's not. It's essentially just like a strength workout, and they're totally different things. So I have blog posts on that I can share later, but just know just because it's a strength class doesn't necessarily mean that it's a strength class. So just those are a few misconceptions I kind of wanted to clear the air about.
Okay. And for strength training, you don't necessarily need to be lifting these. And I'm asking this because I made the mistake. I started having back pain. And so I went to the gym and started doing crazy heavy deadlifts and squats. And that's not necessarily what we need to be doing. Like in dentistry, would you say we need to focus on like the smaller muscles or the bigger muscles when we're working out?
So it depends. For example, a lot of hygienists I speak to, or I should say every hygienist I speak to, have a lot of neck and shoulder pain, right? Yeah. So what we need to do is essentially stretch those overused muscles, right? Like a chest muscle is a big muscle. Your anterior deltoid, that's a small muscle, or your upper traps, a somewhat large muscle, but long story short, we need to work those smaller muscles in the back, like your rhomboids, right? Your posterior deltoid, as well as like the mid and the lower traps. So that's for the upper body. So the lower body, if you have back pain, whether you do or not, essentially you need to strengthen your glutes, which are one of the biggest muscles in your bodies, as well as your hamstrings. So that doesn't mean that you have to go, like I said, deadlift 200 pounds. There's definitely a progression, right? I have a program that I start at, it could be as simple as a glute bridge, right? A hamstring curl, whether it's with a dumbbell or a band, and you kind of progress your way up. But then we also have to focus on like the, erector spinae, right, which runs across the lower back. So there are movements where you're going to incorporate that as well. But again, you have to kind of work depending on, essentially, to be quite frank, it's all of the muscles on your backside that we should be working, right? So we don't need to do squats, which are front loaded, or like, a push press overhead, which is going to hit more like those front shoulders. We need to essentially work the back muscles, the posterior muscles. In a perfect world, our anterior muscles on our front and our posterior muscles on the back are going to be symmetrical, and that's going to help us with an upright posture. Again, it's not a perfect world. Nobody's posture is perfect. Everybody has an imbalance, no matter who you are. So it's just really, really important that we hit those posterior muscles in order to combat that front-loaded, forward lean type of imbalance that most hygienists are living with.
Well, since you talked about imbalances, this is a good segue. What exactly is a muscle imbalance, and why are we in dentistry so prone to those?
Great question. So in imbalance, essentially is when your opposing muscles, say your chest and your back, are not of equal strength and length, right? So again, referencing back to the rounded shoulders or the forward head, you tend to have a very tight, short chest muscles, and then the back muscles are very long and weak. So essentially by, again, strengthening the back muscles, you're going to kind of combat that.
Okay.
Another thing that I wanted to add was essentially, too, when you're working your back muscles, it's really important that you incorporate not only like a vertical pull, we also have to work horizontal pulls. So that's a lot of thing that programs lack. You also want to play with hand placement. So my program, we have a lot of underhand, overhand, neutral grip. Like those all hit different muscles. So it's really, really important, especially for, dental pros and hygienists in particular, that we're working all of those back muscles, because a lot of those are going to help stabilize the shoulder girdle, which is, where a lot of the overuse come from and the pain. So just an additional little tip on that.
So when I'm coaching people on getting into neutral posture and holding neutral posture, sometimes they tell me that it's painful for them to hold neutral, or they can't hold it for that long and they end up reverting to that forward posture. Is that because of a muscle imbalance, or maybe because those muscles have gotten stretched out in their back and weak?
150%, yes.
Okay.
It will be. A, it'll be quite uncomfortable for them to even try and pull their shoulders back. B, they, depending on how long this has gone on, they might not even be able to fully get back into that perfect posture, in quotation marks, if you will. So, it's really, really important that for that individual, we just have to really, really work on strengthening those back muscles. Because, our bodies are smart, right? It adapts. So if it's going to be in that position for whatever, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, it's going to learn that. that muscle memory, and it's kind of just going to be like the new norm, if you will.
Well, that's when we start turning into these dental hunchbacks that I talk about sometimes, right? None of us want that.
Yeah. No, and that's, when I was younger, I was all about lifting heavy and, more like the bodybuilding mentality. And, the longer I've been in this industry and I see people, no one's got perfect posture. Everybody's got imbalances. People are in pain. Like, we should not be suffering in pain, right? We need to do what we can to alleviate that. And a lot of people just don't know there's so much out there in the fitness world that is kind of just, mass marketed, like, oh, do this workout to lose fat or build muscle or whatever. So, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but at the end of the day, like, if you're having pain in, work out in the gym, like, it's very unnecessary. So that's why I'm super passionate about what I do, because, we only live once. We want to live like a happy, healthy life and, be able to age well. Like, if you're already in pain in your 30s and your 40s, like, what's going to happen down the road? So.
Right. And I think in dentistry, it's almost a part of our culture that we're all in pain, and it does not have to be that way. So I'm really glad that there's people like you that are out there helping us. Speaking of what you do, I know that you have a program just for dental professionals. So I'd really like to hear more about that, because all of this lifting and telling us what muscles we need to work out, at least for me, it's kind of overwhelming. So I'm sure that you put it in a much more user-friendly format. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So my program, essentially, I do have strength training workouts included that target those underactive muscles that, dental professionals kind of endure. But first and foremost, I always start with a movement and posture screen just to check, kind of assess you as an individual, right? You may all have the similar, issues and underlying pain, but essentially, nobody's symmetrical to the next person. So I always start with that. But yeah, my program right now, it's 10 weeks. I do want to extend it and just add a couple bonus videos for everybody. But what it is, it's got the strength program and everything's hyperlinked to my YouTube. So you see exactly how to perform the movement, where you should be feeling it, when you should be breathing, what not to do. And then you get check-in calls with me just in case you have issues or if you want to stay accountable. And then not only that is I'm a big proponent on educating folks, right? I'm not just like, here's your workout plan, do this. I want people to know why we're doing this, what we're steering clear of, and then here's the exercises that we're doing to, for upper body, say, in order to strengthen the back muscles, today's exercises is this, and then same thing on the lower body. So the educational modules, they're not too lengthy. They're about 15 minutes long, but I just think it's really important to kind of give everybody, the whole piece of the puzzle, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be my client for the rest of your life, right? I want you guys to learn kind of, down the road, if you want to do things on your own or try something, probably I shouldn't do that, right? Or this is probably something better that I could do for myself personally, right?
Yeah, I like that educational part of it too, because I know us hygienists in particular, we're just a bunch of nerds. Like, we want to learn everything and we want to know why we're doing these things. And like what you said, we can take that education and carry it with us. I know that this is something you and I have talked about, but I still do some group fitness. But now when I go in and they recommend that we're working on the chest, I will modify and I'll start working on my back because of what you told me, because we don't need to be working our chest, right? Like, we're good as far as that goes.
Yeah. And, I'm not like, do my program, don't do this workouts. I have clients that do Peloton. I'm not a fan of Peloton, but if you truly enjoy something, by all means, have at it. Any exercise is better than none, right? That is hands down. Any fitness professional can agree with that. However, I feel personally that you need to take those in small doses. So if you want to go to Orange Theory 1 or 2 days a week, that's great. Especially if you're modifying things, that's perfect. But you do need to do some type of strength training 2 to 3 days a week in order to combat and alleviate, the muscle imbalances that you're having. Because guess what, guys? If you're having a muscle imbalance, it's not just going to disappear. It's either going to worsen, it's going to spread, right? Our body's connected. So if we are having pain, in our back, it could stem from our knee, our hip, our glute, our ankle. Like, you don't know, essentially. So it's just really, really important to, again, correct those imbalances because they are correctable. So just be conscious of that. And then on the same hand, you don't have to work out like 6-7 days a week, right? It's not about that either. My program is 4 days a week just because it's upper body split. So you do 2 and 2. So yeah, just know that you don't have to go in the gym 6-7 days to kill yourself. And guys, if you are feeling pain during any type of workout, please stop. I know you're used to it, but you shouldn't be feeling any type of pain during any workout whatsoever. So
Can you define pain? Because I feel like is there not good pain? Because I don't know. Sports, high school sports, there's always some good pain.
It's so funny you say that because, like, you know, people can't stand burpees, right? Or planks, like, oh, this hurts. Like, I just want to drop, right? But if it's like a pinch or like it, you know, again, if you're holding a 5-minute plank, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. So uncomfortable is different than like discomfort. Like if so that's really my answer. Like if it's feeling like a sharp, like a stabbing or just, and if you can't even get a full range of motion, like that's telling you something right there too. So if I know it's hard for you guys to kind of identify because you are used to being in pain, but I would say physical pain, not mental pain. How about that?
That's good. That's a good definition. So what do you tell those, and I'm sure that you have this as well, I get it every day. What do you tell those clinicians who think that they're good because they're seeing a massage therapist every week or they're going to physical therapy or whatever? What do you say to those people?
Well, they're probably spending a lot of money, first of all, but those are, I mean, I get massages too. They're amazing. Who doesn't love a massage? But it's such a temporary relief. Like it's not going to fix anything long term. And that's why you have to go to the chiropractor every week or the massage therapist, you know, every 2 weeks or every month or whatever it is. Physical therapy is the same thing. If you get an injury, you know, you probably see them for 6 to 8 weeks and then they're like, see you later. Here's exercises to do on your own. There's a reason for that, right? So I do work closely with physical therapists. A lot of people refer to me because you do need exercise. So, I mean, it's okay to do those things. But at the end of the day, if you're properly training to alleviate your imbalances and correct them, you're not going to need those services aside from the massage because those are just wonderful. But you won't need to go to the chiropractor or physical therapy and all that. Like, trust me. And it's funny too. Like I've seen it, you know, over the years, how quickly people gain strength. It's, you know, it doesn't happen overnight, but you'll see 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like you will literally feel yourself physically getting stronger. It does happen fairly quickly. So it's not like, oh, you know, I have to go work out for 3 years. That's not the case. It happens a little bit quicker than people think. So yeah.
Well, once you start developing that strength too, it's motivating. And you want to keep doing it. And then all of a sudden it just becomes a way of life and it's not really a burden anymore.
Well, yeah. And once you build muscle, it's just about maintaining it, right? You're not going to lose it. It's a lifestyle. And you might go from 4 days a week to 3 or, you know what I mean? It's just so much easier to maintain and, you know, have an upright posture and no pain and just like enjoy work again. Like it's priceless. It really is. So, you know, when I have people reaching out to me that are currently in my program, it literally melts my heart because just like you, Stephanie, like we're really passionate about what we do. And you're not nerds. You're passionate about physical health, right? As am I, and helping other people feel good and, you know, healthy. So yeah, I think that, you know, it's a good thing.
Speaking of us being nerds, and we love being nerds. We're happy about that. But I feel like it's really hard to go to another professional to seek help as a hygienist. So like, what would you say to those people who are maybe, like I just said, like I did high school sports. I should know how to, you know, strength train and do all these things. I don't know how to do it anymore. So what would you say to them?
You know, a lot of people use the analogy like, you know, if your car's broken, you're going to go to a mechanic, right? Like the body is, you know, all of this is a very scientific, methodical approach. Like you can't just go do some squats and some push-ups and call it a day. Like you have to use progressive overload. You guys have probably heard that term, maybe not, but essentially you have, you know, you could do whatever exercises you want, but if you're not changing the tempo, the number of sets, the number of reps over time in a progressive manner, you're never going to build muscle. So again, like if you're going to walk into the gym and do the same, you know, 50 squats and 25 push-ups and, you know, planks and call it a day, like your body, it's not going to have any benefits essentially other than maybe burning a few calories. So same thing with like running. Like if you enjoy running, that's great, but your body is constantly moving in that forward plane. Your quads become so overdeveloped and then either you're going to snap a hamstring or you're going to have back pain because your hamstrings are going to be so underdeveloped. So there's just, you know, we're personal trainers for a reason, right? We've been studying this for years. There's ubers of certifications out there that you can get. There's full-blown degrees, right? Like we know what we're talking about. So I feel like you just kind of have to suck it up. And I hate to say that, but I'm not going to go just.
That's tough love. Yeah. That's fine.
But like, really, like, I'm not just going to go, I worked as a dental assistant for a year, Andrew. I don't know if you know that, but like, I'm not just going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to brush and floss my teeth and never get a cleaning and I'll be good for the rest of my life. Like, that's kind of the equivalent of that. And, or if I have a pain, I'm not going to be like, well, it's going to go away, kind of like a hygienist would. Well, maybe I'll just work on my own. Like, no, like you really need to seek a professional. Just like if you were in my shoes, if I were having pain in a tooth, well, me in personal, not everybody, but I would go, straight to my dentist and be like, hey, doc, take an x-ray. Like, what's going on? So, to each their own, but like, there's no harm in asking for help. Like, that's what we're here for. We're all professionals and expertise is in our field. And essentially that's what makes the world go round, right?
Well, and I think too, like in dentistry, we have got it's not just my opinion, but it's like research based too. We've got one of the most physically demanding, stressful jobs out there. And I think if we're trying to keep ourselves healthy, because of the risk factors and the hurdles that we're up against in dentistry, it just makes sense to hire someone, a professional, to walk us through these exercises, what we need to do, lay it out in black and white, right? Instead of us trying to just fumble around and figure it out on our own like I used to do.
Well, and just to kind of reiterate your point is like, you guys have enough on your plates, right? You work long shifts, and why kind of add more stress to your life trying to figure out, I have people tell me all the time, I'm not sure what I'm doing is right or wrong. Well, of course you don't, because you're not, educated in that. So why would you know? And I actually feel bad when I hear that, because there is so much, I call it noise out there. There's so much noise out there in the fitness industry. The fitness marketing industry does a really good job of tricking people. And so, it kind of breaks my heart when I hear stuff like that, because, I know what's right. And the portion of what's right out there in all the noise is very small compared to everything that's out there. So that's why I always do my best to, educate people. I'm always happy to help somebody, even if somebody's on a phone call with me and they don't sign up with me, like, that's fine. I still want them to have a takeaway and learn something. Like, hey, I had one girl who didn't sign up with me, and I said, just whatever you do moving forward, my professional advice, like, please stop doing like push-ups and chest press. Like, you don't need to do that, because she was experiencing, workouts that were increasing her pain. Right. So again, it's about helping people, right? And helping them become healthy and pain-free, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like, okay, this is totally anecdotal, but I think about like the doctors I've worked for, the hygienists that I've worked with that are maybe towards the end of their career. I feel like now we're having more issues than we ever have as far as body pains and things like that. Is that true, or is that just that's my truth of what I've seen? And if it is true, why are we seeing it more now than before? Because I don't see a lot of these older docs with that hunch. I see a lot of the mid-let, like, not like the retired ones, but like the ones that are about ready to retire now are the ones that have that. But the ones before them didn't have it.
It could be because of cell phones, right? And, I know you guys are on the computer a little bit at work, but I don't know if you guys are on the computer at home, but it could be from that. I mean, I think a lot of it is the cell phone, right? I see kids who are teenage years already with like rounded shoulders because they're constantly looking down with that like text neck. So I don't know if that's it, Stephanie. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I know the workload, has increased. It just keeps increasing. It's like we're under even more demand with not any extra time. And I feel like maybe that is a contributor, because we simply don't have time to worry about our posture or worry about our ergonomics, or we're too exhausted at the end of the day to work out. So I feel like it's probably multifactorial as far as that goes, Andrew.
So if someone is listening to this and they're they need to get help, but is there something that they could do between now and they start their first session with you, or they start really getting in? Like, what's an easy strength training, something that someone can do that's not going to like be too technically difficult?
Or maybe stop doing, right?
or stop doing too. Like, we talked about not working the chest so much and things like that, but
it's so hard to say, because, are you guys really familiar with the muscles?
We took anatomy courses and stuff like that.
But when I talk about like the rhomboids and the serratus anterior, like, do you have any idea what that is?
Like, I know what those are.
One's on the back.
Yeah, some of the muscles you mentioned, I don't know what they are. Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked, because it's tough. I mean, honestly, if you have resistance bands at home, even a TRX, the only thing, TRXs are so wonderful because, it's not a lot of, added weight, but it also works your core so much. The only thing that I have like issue-wise with the TRX and why I don't put it in my program is because people tend to shrug so much on the TRX, and that's like the last thing that a dental pro needs to do. So if you have a TRX, just be conscious of shrugging, but anything that you want to do on there, you can do rows, vertical or horizontal, and then like glute bridges are really great. You can do single leg. But the only thing is, like, a lot of dental pros tend to have that pelvic tilt, right? Or that sway back. And so that's going to be really problematic doing any type of hamstring, essentially, or glute focused movement. You have to really tuck the tailbone, which hopefully you guys are familiar with because I think yoga is pretty popular amongst the industry, but you just have to be conscious of tucking the tailbone, putting that rib cage down, and engaging the core whenever you're doing anything, just to kind of protect the low back and the spine. And then when you're doing any type of rows, I always say, like, keep a neutral neck. You don't want to be like looking up when you're deadlifting, so always a neutral spine. So yeah, rows, vertical, horizontal, glute bridges, hamstring curls, and then core work. So I love dead bugs. Bird dogs are good. They're a little bit more difficult, but any type of banded press, like a Pallof press, is really good too. So if you guys aren't sure what any of that is, you can look on my YouTube. I have all of that listed. But yeah, anything like that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Am I hearing that dental professionals mostly sound like the back needs to be worked out more than the front?
The posterior, absolutely, 150%.
Is that consistent with the general public, or is that very specific to us?
No, it is. It's pretty. So actually, they used to say back in the day, like, one push to one pull. Now, since the digital age is kind of where it is, they say 2 pulls to 1 push. So if you were to do a push up, you want to do 2 pulling motions, so 2 back exercises to combat that, because people do have such poor posture. So yeah, it's common throughout, the entire world, if you will, but it is extra predominant, obviously in dentistry, because you guys do have such a physical demanding job. So yeah, but that's a great rule of thumb. More pulls, skip the pushes and the presses.
So we talk a lot about like the stretching, which I know we're not really talking about stretching on this one, but in the operatory, in between patients, things like that, like what is something that we could do that's really easy? Or should we just not do anything?
No, I think, I know Stephanie, I listened to her microbreaks episode and it was amazing. And any chest stretch is great. Traps as well. The only thing I would I don't want to say steer clear of it, but when you're doing a back stretch, like, your thoracic spine is already really elongated because you are hunched forward all day. So stretching that is not going to help. That's one muscle that you really need to strengthen. So when you're stretching the back, I would just kind of be careful of that because it's already like really stretched out. So for sure, any type of neck stretch, to the side lateral, down towards the armpit, you can do nod your head yes and no, left and right, and then any like trap and chest for sure. Those would be perfect. And also wrists, like, the forearm stretches, put your hands down and up. Those are really good too.
Can I ask, I don't know if this will make it like into the podcast, but I'm just curious. You mentioned yoga, and yoga is very popular amongst dental professionals. And I just want to hear your take on yoga versus strength training. Like, is it kind of comparing apples to oranges, or is there one that's better than the other? Okay.
Total night and day. So actually I had a call yesterday, one of my clients, she does like a morning, it's not even a flow. It's more like mobility. It's a yoga based on mobility. So I said, that's perfect if you're going to do something like that. But if you're looking to go to yoga to like relieve your imbalances, it's never going to happen. Okay. It's great, for stretching and mobility, and even to just like relax your mind, but it's not going to correct any muscular imbalances. So I always tell people to just incorporate both. Like, do your couple days of yoga, because, it's not going to harm you, yoga, but I'm a big proponent on, training for efficiency, right? If you only have an hour a day to train, like, it would be much more advantageous for you to do like, a 45-minute strength training session and then like a mobility cool down versus like an hour of yoga, because we're all very busy, right? So strength training is just like kind of the top tier of exercise, and that's going to just, prevent injuries hands down all around.
Well, and we're talking about building muscle, and you already said the only way to do that is to like do that progressive overload over time, which yoga I don't think can provide that. So
No.
thanks for clearing that up.
I mean, calisthenics, aka body weight, there's no way that's going to happen. Essentially, when you are strength training, I hate to tell people this because I don't like to turn people off, but when you're strength training under load, right, whether it be a band, you're challenging your muscles, right, eccentrically and concentrically, then your muscles get these little, they're called micro tears, and then your body has to work to repair it, and that's what builds the muscle. So that's only done through strength training or resistance training. That's the other terminology. So that's how that works.
Okay, cool.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to meet you, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Speaking with our audience. If someone wanted to reach out, if they wanted to find more about you, follow you on YouTube, all of that, where can they find you?
Yeah, so everything, I mean, my last name is Novaes, Novaes, so you can search Brianne Novaes, but pretty much all of my handles all around are built by Brianne. I've got LinkedIn. Yeah, Instagram is pretty popular for me. LinkedIn, Instagram are my go-tos, and then I have a website too that I think you guys are going to link, also builtbybrianne.com.
And what's the name of your program?
Dumbbells for Dentistry. I should have stated that.
I just love that name. It's so catchy.
It is good.
I'm glad because I'm a big, I kind of work. I don't sit and think of names. Things just come to me, and that came to me. And even Built by Brianne, that just came to me. But essentially, I just love my program. I put my heart and soul into it, and I've gotten super good feedback already from people. So I'm just so happy, and I just want to continue to help as many dental pros as I can. And Stephanie, you're a great partner. I love partnering with you because what you do is so important too. So I think, yeah, it's a great team. We're going to be the next Andrew and Brittany. No, I'm kidding. or not Britt. Yeah. So yeah,
Michelle.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
That's
thank
what I
you.
meant.
Thank you, Brianne.
Well, you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you. All
All right, you too. Have a good day.
right. Bye.
All right, bye.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.